Here to discuss building the life you want with empathy and courage, please welcome Cheryl Strayed and Arthur C. Brooks, contributing writer at The Atlantic.
Hi again,
everyone.
Everybody. Hey, hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Arthur. It's so exciting to be here. Look at all the iPhones are out.
I know.
I'm kind of scared.
They're not texting. They're not looking at social media because they're bored, is my guess, and I certainly hope not. I'm looking forward to having this session. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I feel like we were destined to connect at some point, given the intersections between our work.
I agree.
And here's kind of where I want to start this. I mean, everybody knows Cheryl Strayed's work. Wild, which is this incredible memoir about her, is built around a long walk. But what it really was a pilgrimage toward finding something critically important. If you haven't read it, I urge you to do so. One of the things when you study the serious business of happiness that you learn pretty quickly is that happiness is not a destination. Happiness is a pilgrimage. Happiness is a direction. And it makes perfect sense. You don't want to be perfectly happy. You don't want to find ultimate happiness, to eradicate your negative feelings. You'd be dead in a week. You would not have negative experiences from which you could learn and grow. You need unhappiness. Suffering is incredibly sacred, and Cheryl writes about this incredibly eloquently. But her long walk is a metaphor for what we're all trying to do in life to get happier. I've done this myself. I've walked the Camino de Santiago across northern Spain twice. And I've always found what Oprah Winfrey calls my happierness along the way. So let's start there. Let's start with the pilgrimage. What did you find as you walked toward Cheryl?
Well, I wrote a whole book about it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a long story. And I will say, Arthur, that you're so right. I'm so glad to meet you. I'm such a fan of your work. And the bell is always ringing when I read what you write about the connection between suffering and happiness, and how much pain and sorrow and loss is threaded into our deepest, most profound joy. And I think that Wild is really all about that. I mean, the headline about Wild is, of course, it's about my long hike on the Pacific Crest Trail, which I took in the summer of 1995. But really, what that book is about is how I found my way to continue on in the face of enormous suffering and loss. I didn't know how I was going to be able to live without my mother. She had died very suddenly at 45 of cancer when I was a senior in college. As I was becoming a woman, I lost the only parent who was, the taproot really of my life. And what I felt is what I feel like every one of you in this room who's lost somebody essential knows that when you lose somebody essential, the world is over. And I'm not being hyperbolic, that the world as you know it is over. And the first thought I had is I can't go on, I can't live I can't live, my world is over. What I learned is, no, I need to recreate the world without her, the world without my mother. What is the meaning of the world without my mother? What is the meaning of my life in that world? And how do I thrive without this person who helped me thrive? And so the journey, the pilgrimage, the wild walk I went on was all about learning how to do that, which ultimately was, if people say, what's the one word, what's the one lesson, that you learned on that journey? It's the one word is acceptance. And what I mean by that, Arthur, is the acceptance of so much of what you've written about, the acceptance that suffering is part of life, it's part of love, it's part of beauty, it's part of connection, it's part of all of the good things. So that last line of Wild, how wild it was to let it be. Sorry, spoiler alert if you didn't read the book. How wild it was to let it be was saying how wild it is when we can accept all of it as a gift.
If you go back decades to the 1960s, sort of the Woodstock generation, there was a motto: if it feels good, do it. I remember my dad hearing that for the first time. He's like, that's the end of America, right?
He might not have been totally wrong, but
I know.
okay,
It's like he's kind of right. Anyway, so, but now if I look at a lot of 20-somethings today, I think that the new Woodstock motto might be, if it feels bad, make it stop.
Yeah.
If I'm suffering, something's wrong with me. If there is trouble in my life and I'm feeling anxious or depressed, it means I'm broken. What do you say to that, to young people who are feeling these things? Because look, you read a little Cheryl Strayed, and man, you need to suffer, or you're not going to grow up. You're not going to find yourself. If you don't have unhappiness, you're not going to find happiness. How do you explain this?
Yeah, I mean, you're asking these gigantic questions. Both of them so far, I'm like, well, we could talk for years about this. And both of us have written for years about this, because it also, in my work as Dear Sugar, in my book, Tiny Beautiful Things, giving advice to people who write to me saying, essentially, I'm suffering. I also have 2 teenagers. I have a son who's 19, a daughter who's 17. My son just went to college last week, and my daughter's a senior in high school. And to have 2 teenagers is always a challenge, it turns out, but to have 2 teenagers during a pandemic, even more so. And I watched my kids suffer in different ways. To protect their privacy, I'm not going to go deeply into it, but I really had to grapple with this question, like literally in my own household, to find that balance between saying, pain does have a purpose. Struggle does have a purpose. The reason it's hard to be a teenager, even if things are going well, is that you're evolving. You're going through a deep, profound transformation. And you have to learn some things about yourself and the world and your family. You have to learn some lessons that are painful, that make you struggle. And those are the things that make you grow. Now, also sometimes you have to say, we need to bring in some help. We need interventions. It's always that, I think, not one or the other. I don't think everything should be immediately solved outside the self or with a pill or with a therapy session. One of the things I shared with both of my kids when I would see them struggling, and when they would say, go to therapy, and then the problem wasn't over, was that I don't know a single person, in all my life, I've never met a single person who recovered, healed, found their way through suffering, who didn't, at core, ultimately save themselves. And so this isn't to say we shouldn't draw on outside resources, but it is to say that ultimately we are responsible for our lives, we are responsible for our well-being, and we have to fight for it, we have to struggle for it, we have to walk through the fire to get it. And everyone I know who has gone through that process has done it ultimately themselves.
You got to do the work.
That's right.
You actually have to do work.
And that it's within you. That nobody can give you, as you said, happiness. Nobody can give you a sense of well-being. Nobody can. This is a quote from Sugar. Nobody can take your suffering away.
Right. One of the exercises that I ask my students to do, to undertake over the course of my class in happiness, is to understand what their pain means. When you're 28 years old, which is the average age for my students, there's a problem every day.
Yeah.
Somebody is breaking your heart today, and you might get a C- on an exam tomorrow, and then the job market doesn't look so good the next day, and there's just a lot. It's just a lot. I ask them to keep a pain journal, where it sounds bad, doesn't it? But but for each entry in the pain journal, to leave 3 lines, or to fill in 1 line, leave 2 lines under it. And so you write down, whatever it is that's bothering you, which, by the way, is a very helpful thing to do, because that's called metacognition. That moves the experience of the emotion from the limbic system of your brain into the prefrontal cortex, where you can manage it, which is a very important thing for us all to do. And journaling is an important way to do that. But to write the thing down, and then to leave the 2 spaces blank under it, and come back after 1 month, and on the first open line, write, what did I learn about that pain during the intervening month? And then 6 months later, come back and say, what good thing happened to me because of that pain? Inevitably, you wind up writing things in those spaces, and after a while, you start looking forward to writing in your pain journal, because you get to look at the ways that you've learned and grown and benefited but you have to make it conscious. You have to make it metacognitive. And that's a lot of what you're saying about how to do the work. This is an example of actually how to do the work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, so just to be clear, like line one would be like, my girlfriend broke up with me, or I got a D, and so, and then you come back. I mean, it's so interesting to me that you're writing about that process of metacognition and how powerful it is to do things like journal or write. Because I do think that, as a writer, especially a writer who has written a lot about her life and about her pain, I feel like I do that actually as part of my work, and it is tremendously helpful in allowing you to sort of expand beyond suffering or anger or any of the things we sometimes feel about the bad things that happen to us or the things we regret, the mistakes we made. Because we then see like, oh, there is a gift. Like even in the very worst thing. I always think it's interesting. I mean, there are different kinds of losses. You all remember the first, unless those of you who are still with the first person you fell in love with, that first time you had a broken heart. Like, aren't you so glad you're not still with that person? I mean, really, it's a pretty universal, like, thank goodness, right? But at the time, you're like, I can't live. My heart is broken. I'm really glad I'm not married to Jeff Boyd. I love Jeff Boyd. Glad he's happy. I don't want to be his wife. But I think that's so that kind of pain is pretty easy to see. Like, oh yeah, I learned things, and I'm glad that. Now the death of my mother, more complicated. If I could go back in time, I would have my mother live. That is not a kind of suffering that I'm like, yeah, I'm so grateful my mom died young, of cancer. Never. But there is something I could write in those lines that Arthur talks about. And, what it is that my most profound suffering has also been my greatest gift. It has informed me as a human, as a writer. It has brought the things I've written about, my love for my mother, my loss, my grief, has brought consolation to people around the world. Like that has been a very powerful gift in my life. And for me, again, to see both of of those things at the same time, I think is what we need to do. I mean, that's what your pain journal is about, right?
And you're making another point too. This is incredibly important for us to remember for our own lives, but also as we steward and guide other people in our lives. Pain is normal.
Yeah.
A lack of pain is abnormal. Like I say to students at Harvard, if you're not anxious and depressed, you need therapy.
Well, is anyone at Harvard not anxious?
That's the point.
I mean, don't you have to just be anxious to get into Harvard?
That's the point. And the students that think you have it bad, who's got it bad is the faculty. Holy moly. It's they have no idea. They have no idea what we're going through. But
I walked across the Harvard campus once in my life, and I was instantly anxious.
Yeah, instantly anxious. I know.
I was like, they would never let me in this place. Yeah.
I know. And so the whole point of that is helping people understand. Look, you don't have to go looking for pain because you need the benefits of pain. Pain will find you. But keeping it in proper perspective, that you need to be fully alive. There was an ancient philosopher and theologian of the 4th century, Catholic saint Irenaeus, who one time said that the glory of God is a person fully alive. He didn't say a person who's like really super happy every single moment of the day. Fully alive. What does it mean to be fully alive? And this is the point that you make in Dear Sugar again and again and again,
right.
and in Wild again and again. You want to be fully alive? Bring it on. That's the gestalt of your work, as far as I'm concerned, is you were saying, bring it on.
All of it.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a gift, but it's also normal in its way. But of course, we do want to deal with it in a couple of ways. And the title of the session is Building the Life You Want with Empathy and Courage. And these are the two things you've written about really extensively, is the role of empathy and the role of courage, right?
Yes, but I have to say, Arthur, you have educated me. I just finished listening to your most recent book that you wrote with, what's her name again? Oprah Winfrey?
Hey, it's like, what can I say? I like to give little-known authors a chance. That's just how I was raised, you know?
Lifting her up.
Yeah.
And you schooled me because you have this whole thing about like empathy versus compassion. And I think like a lot of people, I use those words interchangeably.
Of course.
But I do I think most truly by your definition of those words, I do compassion,
Right.
which is I see your suffering, I feel for you. And here is what I have to say that might illuminate your problem or
Right.
might help you down the path further.
Right.
And very often, I don't remember what your question was there, but very often I
This
will.
is good though.
Okay. Very often I will say, like, I think the deepest compassion is, first of all, telling the truth.
Right.
I'll very clearly say, here's what here's what I hear you saying. Because I think that so often people do have the answers within them. They're afraid to know their truth. The letters that people write to me very often are like, they say that what they want. They say what they know. They say what they fear. And they're just afraid to wrap their arms around it and say, okay, I can live with this truth. I can live with this fear. I can live with this desire and act upon it. And so I feel like in some ways the most compassionate thing I do as Dear Sugar is show that, shine a light on what they already know and say, I trust you to make good on the wisdom that's already within you.
Yeah, so just as a basic matter of definitions, what we're talking about here, the difference between compassion and empathy is, and social psychologists have written about this a great deal, empathy is to feel somebody else's pain, different than sympathy. Empathy is to feel somebody else's pain. Compassion has an element of empathy, but it builds on empathy. So you feel somebody else's pain, you understand the nature of where it's coming from, you're not paralyzed by it, and you can help the person. That's compassion. It's way better than empathy. I would argue that we, maybe in our society, have too much empathy and not enough compassion. I think that we feel other people, and think about it, the worst parents you've ever met are unbelievably empathetic with their teenagers. Like, that's not what they need. They need you to do hard things. They need you to do things that they don't like sometimes because you actually love them. And if you just feel their pain, there's a role for that because, you do feel it, but you're not paralyzed by that. And that's an important point and that's obviously what you mean in your writing about empathy. That's actually what you mean. How do you try to live that? So you talk about that in the way that your correspondents, your interlocutors, or how do you try to live that day to day in your own life?
Oh my gosh, I have that same question for you. I find that, first of all, any kind of writing makes me a better person, but specifically writing Dear Sugar. And of course, the collection many of my columns are collected in the book Tiny Beautiful Things, but I also I have a monthly Substack newsletter. I still do Dear Sugar. And so I'm still engaging with this, and I had a podcast with Steve Allman. So what I found is when I am writing to people about how they might solve their problems or essentially like evolve to that next better version of themselves, it makes me it makes me interrogate myself. When I'm talking to somebody about how to make their marriage better, I think, well, wait a minute, am I taking my own advice? And I think that that's really, why writing can be such powerful medicine. Because it's not that I never as Sugar have said I'm the wise person who has the perfect, impeccable life. I'm just like you say, listen, I'm the happiness dude who, I'm not saying I'm happy, you know? I mean, I'm paraphrasing you.
No, that's close enough.
And, it's not, I don't give advice. I call it horizontal advice. I'm not coming from this place of well, let me tell you what you should do because I know, and I'm perfect. I'm coming from the place of saying, I am engaged in this struggle that it is to be, how to be not only human, but a human who is always growing and evolving and trying to find that, deeper meaning, a more compassionate way of living, a way in which I struggle less and I'm comfortable more, though of course I'm also saying, and then also welcome the struggle. Every new age brings a new struggle. So I give advice from that vantage point of saying I'm down in there with you.
It's interesting that a lot of people would say, maybe intuitively, if you haven't mastered something, you can't teach it, but that's actually quite wrong. And we know that actually from the social science literature. The best language teachers are usually the speakers of second languages. And as a matter of fact, you can teach a language really effectively before you've mastered that language because you're actually learning it in real time. That's what makes you really good at it. My wife is an immigrant, and she started her first words of English were when she was 25 years old.
Wow.
We married in Spain. We lived in Spain for a long time. We moved to the States in our late 20s, and her English was really flawed. And her first job was an English teacher. and my wife said, "Don't you people have standards in this country?" And I said, "No." I said she was working in an environment where she was teaching immigrant kids who were from very marginalized economic communities, and they needed somebody who understood what it was like to learn English when English was hard. Is the whole point. And so that's the same principle for happiness, isn't it? That's the same principle for trying to live a better life, is that when you're working on it, you're consciously aware of the challenges that other people are having. You know, those naturally happy people that I hate, it's not a struggle. So how would they know, is what it comes down to. And that's a lot of what you're getting at, right?
And are there any, like, I mean, I think that even what you call naturally happy people, I took this, is it Panos test in your book?
Panos, yeah, the
Panos.
positive affect, negative affect series.
I hate to tell you,
What
I'm
are
like
you?
really solidly and definitively a cheerleader. You know, high personal,
We'll explain this in a
high
second,
positive
folks. Yeah,
affect,
yeah.
very low negative affect. But even as somebody who has a natural inclination, I think, towards that kind of, I guess what you'd call happiness, this doesn't mean, I mean, as you know, even happy people struggle. You can't be alive and not struggle.
Right.
You can't be alive and not have loss and grief and hardship and challenges, you know, and deep questions that are you know, that involve some suffering to answer.
Right. You know, life on Earth involves a lot of emotions, which are not good or bad. They're just information.
Yeah.
That's all emotions are, is information about the outside world and giving you information about how you can react to the outside world. It's very important to understand emotions in this way, but some people experience their emotions more intensely than others. And what we're talking about here is a test that we put in the book. And it's a test you can take on yourself to find out what your own personality profile is in the intensity of your positive and negative emotions. It's called a PANAS test. You can go to the website for the book at arthurbrooks.com. We link to it there, and you can take it. And you can find out who you are. And there's 4 kinds of people out there: intense positive and intense negative emotions. That's the mad scientist. That's a quarter of the population. I'm a super mad scientist. Super, it's like, it's impossible to be married to me. Impossible, my wife says. So there's intensely positive and weakly negative, naturally weakly negative. That's Cheryl.
Cheerleader.
Yeah, that's the cheerleader.
I was actually also a literal cheerleader in high school, just so you know.
Yeah. And
I found my calling young.
Yeah,
you know.
Everybody wants to be that, but the point is not that bad things don't happen to you. The point is that you're better at you're more efficient at processing intense positive emotions than negative emotions, so you have natural strengths. Everybody wants to hang out with cheerleaders. They also have weaknesses, by the way. They're naturally deficient at giving bad news or hearing
Simmer
negative
down
information.
over there.
See, this is my point. Look, see, and they shouldn't marry each other, by the way, because when 2 cheerleaders marry each other and they block out all threats and bad news, they generally run up their credit cards and go bankrupt.
My husband and I came pretty close before Wild was published. Yeah,
Really?
okay. Yeah.
Interesting. It's like, the solution is write a big bestseller. So
No, I don't think he's a cheerleader. Yeah, you're right.
yeah, news you can use, folks. Anyway, so if you have intensely negative and weakly positive emotions, that's the poet. That's the poet temperament. That's a quarter of the population. Might sound awful, but those people tend to be creative, romantic, melancholic. And if they manage that particular temperament, it can be very, very beautiful. And then those who have low affect, low positive and low negative, it doesn't mean they don't feel things. It means that their affect levels are low intensity. These are the judges. They're unflappable. They're sober. That's what you want if you're a surgeon, for example. I don't want somebody to cut me open and say, "Oh my God." Okay? So you can take this test and you'll learn a lot about yourself. And one of the things, so this is kind of what we're talking about here. And it's important to understand who you are such that you can exploit your natural strengths and also You can surround yourself with people who compliment you, people who strengthen you, people who fill in your gaps, as it were. Have you done that in your life?
Have I found people
Have you
who...
found people who actually complete you in this
Oh,
way? I mean, I know you have.
I mean, in a different... So my husband, who I've been with now for 28 years, I met him 9 days after I finished my hike on the Pacific Crest Trail. I literally did a pilgrimage, found myself, and then found this incredibly hot dude who I'm still married to. Yeah. So he compliments, I mean, I am like an extrovert. I don't know if you guys have noticed. And he's, much more quiet. Yeah. He's a calmer, quieter, introverted person. But we're both, I call myself an extroverted hermit because I love to do this kind of stuff when I'm at ease talking, but I actually really love to be alone. So it's like and so does my husband. So we know how to be alone with each other together. We both are like solitaries in some ways. Like he's a filmmaker, I'm a writer. Like we complement each other, but we're also incredibly different. If you were at dinner with us, you'd be like, yeah, Brian. Everyone's always like, Brian is such a great guy. You're so lucky. I'm like, hello? Nobody ever says to Brian, I don't understand this. But because he's kind of like just very calm and reassuring to people.
Yeah, there's a lot of data on that introverts and extroverts make great couples together. They really do. But they have to see their differences as a source of strength as opposed to a source of weakness, which is a decision that we can all make. Another distinction that's important to make, given the fact that this session is building the life you want with empathy and courage, is the definition of courage. Now, if empathy isn't compassion, courage is not fearlessness.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that is, a lot of these things we talk about, we throw these words around like courage and we think like, okay, there's a class of people who just are the brave people. They're the brave people who have the capacity to do things, whether it be public speaking or jumping off the side of a mountain or fill in the blank, whatever it is that we decide is a brave thing to do. And what I always try to say to people who write to me, or I write about it in my own books, is that courage, we all have the capacity to be brave in our own lives. And it isn't something that you either have or you don't. It's something you cultivate, within you. And the way you cultivate it is you start doing things. You start doing things that scare you, whether it be literally sometimes to say one sentence, speak one sentence of truth about who you are or what you know or what you want or what you're afraid of, admitting to a vulnerability or a fear. And the minute that somebody, I love to witness this when I teach writing workshops sometimes. I mean, if we lock the doors right now and I made you all take out a piece of paper and write, the hardest thing in your life, or the thing you're the most ashamed of, or the thing, the scariest thing, and then we went around the circle and read them out loud, most of you would be terrified to do it. But I promise not to make us do that today. But sign up for one of my workshops if that sounds like fun to you, okay? And what immediately happens is when that first person just says that first sentence, that's a scary sentence, it changes the atmosphere in the room. And it eventually changes your life when you learn how to do that. Sometimes courage is an action. Sometimes it's a statement. Sometimes it's simply a way of conducting oneself in your life. Being brave enough to do something differently. To say no, to say yes. And so I really think that cultivation of courage, is something that belongs to all of us. What do you say about courage?
Well, courage obviously is not fearlessness because it's pathological to not feel fear. We must feel fear. We have an amygdala in our brains to process fear for a reason. And it's evolved to keep us alive. I mean, this is no joke. If there's a saber-toothed tiger behind you, you need to feel fear and run. You need to pump out some stress hormones under the circumstances. The problem is when it becomes pathological. It's pathological to not feel it, but it can be maladapted. You want to be afraid of being cast out of your tribe and walking the frozen tundra and dying alone. But you shouldn't feel the same thing because of Twitter. But we do, is the whole point. And so the result of that is that we need to actually face our fears, which you did on the Pacific Coast Trail.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. You actually found your courage by facing your fear.
Absolutely. one of the lines in Wild is, fear is a story we tell ourselves. And I decided to tell myself a different story in deciding to take that hike. And it was actually a conscious decision. So when I first thought, I'm going to go walk alone on this trail, first of all, I knew right away, okay, just to decide that I'm breaking certain rules, right? Don't walk alone in the wilderness. Don't walk alone if you're a woman. Okay, 2 codes that we've all heard, right? I knew I was going to do this. And the reason I knew I was going to do it is that I was like, okay, this does seem kind of scary to me, but the decision I'm making is fear going to be my ruler or not? And I do think that really thinking of it like that, to say fear is present. Fear has a place in this decision and this picture and this experience, but it's not going to be the thing that rules my decision. And so I decided long before I set foot on the trail that I wouldn't be afraid. I adopted a mantra that every time I felt afraid, I would say to myself, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. I would say it out loud to myself. And what's the paradox of that, of course, is the only time I said, I am not afraid, is when I was afraid, okay? So I am not afraid, what that meant is, hello, fear, I see you, you're right there, and I'm not gonna let you overtake me. My life isn't going to be guided by you. You're gonna be my escort. This happens too when I write. I have a terrible, monster in my head, like most writers do, that's just like, you're stupid, nobody cares, what are you doing? Why don't you just go, do something else? And I'm just like, welcome, sit down, get out of the way, I'm gonna do my work. And I think that fear that's how I have cultivated courage, is just saying, is fear going to rule this? Now, if a tiger were chasing me, fear would be my ruler, and I would run. But you do have to discern, like, what is an accurate fear, and say, like, okay, let's listen to that, and what isn't.
Right. Fear has evolved to keep you alive. The problem that we have in modern life is that we're so bombarded by small sources of social fear and comparison that we develop anxiety, and anxiety is nothing more than unfocused fear. Figuring out what the focus actually should be makes it metacognitive to the point that we can manage it in an appropriate way and we can get on with our lives.
Absolutely.
Before we finish, you're so incredibly quotable that I was thinking, I want to read a couple of quotes and have you react to them to the audience, partly because I just want to have an excuse to quote some of your incredibly eloquent words to the audience, but also just to get a little commentary on that. Is it okay if I do that?
So you're going to read my quotes to me, and then
I'm going to read your words to you. And this is like,
and then no pressure. I don't have to come up with like an even better quote.
No, that's right. Because this is the best.
Okay.
And usually when people do this in Washington D.C., they're trying to embarrass you, but that's not what we're. It's like, is it not true that you said? No,
I'm scared.
That's right. Quote, don't surrender your joy for an idea you used to have about yourself.
That's no longer true, right? Yeah.
It's really heavy, but there's so much in that. Can you unwrap that just a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, the Dear Sugar letter I'm writing right now that I'm going to publish like in a couple of days, I'm answering a letter from a woman who's like, I moved to New York City at 19, small town girl. I fiercely wanted to make myself a name for myself in New York. 10 years later, I'm 29. I think I want to leave New York. But she's terrified of like, well, does this mean I have given up? Does this mean I didn't succeed? Does this mean now I'm going to miss my opportunity? I'm going to leave just before the real opportunity in New York comes. This is a classic example of something that a lot of us get stuck in. It's like she had this old idea about herself in New York City 10 years ago. A decade later, she feels like a failure because like that idea didn't come true, or her idea of herself has changed. She wants something different now. And so what is more powerful? To surrender her joy so she can stick to her guns and stay in New York and do what she planned to do 10 years ago? Or is it to say, hey, I'm evolving. I'm going to rewrite my life. I'm going to rewrite the story of myself. I'm going to do something new and different. And what that means is I'm not going to surrender my joy. I'm going to surrender the old story. I think so much of our journey in the direction of happiness is about always saying, let's rewrite this. Sometimes it means ending a relationship, leaving a job, leaving a city. Sometimes it means, like in a marriage, saying, okay, that's who we were 10 years ago. Let's reawaken. Who are we now? My husband and I are about to be empty nesters soon. It's like, what's next for us? And I think that to stay awake to your life is never about surrendering joy at the service of an idea. It's always about having that next idea and building a new story around that.
You write beautifully about not being held to a vision that you once had of yourself, which of course is a form of self-objectification. We all know that it's a grave ill to objectify other people for their looks or for their money or whatever, but we objectify ourselves all the time. Who am I?
Yeah.
Writer, whatever. I mean, my job, I self-objectify myself. I'm a human person. I'm not my job. I'm not my opinions. I'm not my past. And only when we can let go of the things that aren't us can we actually be ourselves.
Yeah, really, for sure.
Everyone who comes to you already knows the answer. Is that true?
It's almost true. I mean, there are some people who just very profoundly confused. But when you dig in, like, again, when I teach writing, very often, if I'm reading somebody's manuscript, it can be a page long or it can be a whole novel, one thing I'll say is, circle the sentence in what you've written that means the most to you. What is the one sentence in this whole work that means the most to you? Very often, like, that's the truth. And sometimes that means all the other sentences have to go. And that sentence that you've written, that's the place where you begin. And I do think that obviously we all, like, I listen to your book, and even though, like, I'm like, oh, yes, there's so much, I learn about it, things I already know are reaffirmed. But, it's always like, I think that the thing that's most powerful is, like, I know this stuff and you're articulating it in a powerful way in your voice that deepens my understanding of it. And I do think that that's what people do when, like, write Dear Sugar a letter. It's like they are presenting to me a problem that has the answer imbued in it, and they might just need my help to say, like, let's look at that. Like, you said you are miserable in New York City, so of course you have to go. Done. Next letter, And I mean, I've just written the next column right here on stage, Of course I'll say all this other stuff, but that's the core truth, That is the core truth. And so I do believe that, yeah.
There's the big philosophical difference between the artistic approaches typically in the West and in the East is we have a concept of a work of art yet to be started as an empty canvas to be filled up with brushstrokes. Whereas in the East, they'll often talk about the sculpture, which exists inside the block of jade before the chisel comes out. And it seems to me that this is a lot of what you're doing, is telling people to get out the chisel so they can find what's already in there. That's the point, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And we're all encased in the sort of the detritus of all the things that aren't true, but the truth is actually in there. And it's time to stop adding more to our lives and start taking things away, which is what you did on the Pacific Coast Trail.
Yeah.
You took out, that was the chisel, right?
There was sleeping, eating, drinking, walking, silence, sunsets, sunrise, sunsets, sunrise. I mean,
it again.
The radical simplicity of just, and everything I needed, that's something that never, ever left me.
Yeah.
Is that everything I needed to live was on my back. I carried it in that backpack. And to bring life down to that level of simplicity for, an extended period like I did was really a profound, of course I now have like way more junk, but I remember the truth of that. I carry the truth of that. This is why I'm such an advocate of, like, take journeys, like actually go on journeys that take you outside your comfort zone, that take you outside of the ordinary, that bring you back to simplicity. I mean, it would be fun to check into the Four Seasons in Paris for 3 months, but it's probably not going to be very good for you. Walking a long way and, with everything you need on your back will change your life.
What are you working on right now?
I'm working on my next book, which I've been working on for some time. And also, I've, in the last few years, been kind of writing in Hollywood. I've been writing scripts and screenplays and so forth. And I was a writer on Tiny Beautiful Things. My Dear Sugar book was adapted into a Hulu TV show. I was a writer and executive producer on that. I was hired to write a screenplay about Janis Joplin, which I did during the pandemic, went deep into her life. It was very interesting. And now I'm working, now that the strike is over, I'm back to work on another script. So I kind of do both script writing and book writing and my monthly column. And I'm also working on changing my life. And I know that sounds funny or dumb, but it's true. I turned 55 a couple weeks ago, and my kids are getting older, and I feel my life shifting in this way that it shifted kind of in my 20s when I went on my hike. And I'm really thinking deeply about how to move into this next era of my life, and making some changes in my personal, like just in my, doing planks more, things like that.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to,
Yeah.
doing planks.
Well, it's good to know that the author of Wild, the memoir, is still on a pilgrimage.
That's
and we'll
right.
enjoy it along with you. Please join me in thanking Cheryl Strayed.
Thank you.